Success to succeed in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Yo, what's up? I'm gonna keep it going, y'all. Here we go. Well, it's time to make that change. People of the world today are fading. All of us have our ups and downs. You better think about it or you won't be around. What we need is a little bit of love. Sent by one from heaven up above. Jacob T is simple and plain. This ain't no game, you know what I'm saying? What? Yep, yeah. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Yo, mom, kick it for me one time.
Yeah, it's time. It's time to make a change. And we are the people who can do it. Welcome to Success to Succeed on KBRG. Today's guest is Andrew Gaines with PhD. This is your host, Larry Harris. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Man, I am blessed and unstoppable. How are you, Larry?
I'm blessed and highly favored of the Lord.
There we
I
go.
appreciate you coming on the show. I'd like for you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself before we get into what PhD is all about and kind of let them know your background.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you and with everybody who's tuning in. It's good to be together. I know we were talking a little bit earlier. I don't come from any kind of crazy background. I'm pretty normal, man. I was told all growing up, go to school, get good grades, get a good job. And that was kind of the blueprint that I was given. And I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to take advantage of, higher education and a lot of the things that not everybody gets to take advantage of. I got my bachelor's down in Southern California at a place called Azusa Pacific University, got my bachelor's in political science. And I know we were talking, I always make the joke, it's not because I'm super smart or political. I had to change my major a couple times and find the one with the smallest unit so I could actually get out of there and graduate on time, man. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I ended up getting a master's and I took the easy route. I stuck around, took out more student loans, got a master's degree because I'd been in school. So I knew how to do that. And I got my master's in career counseling, adult development. I make the joke that I thought that if I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, maybe I should go study what people learn about how to figure out what you should be doing with your life, career counseling, and maybe I'd figure it out for me. But that didn't necessarily work out that way, but really enjoyed my time there. Got to meet some great people and do some great work, and got pretty connected with a missions organization there at Azusa Pacific, and ended up working as a college pastor for about 7 years in LA, and got into the nonprofit world. Did a lot of media. I ended up doing a little bit of fundraising for some nonprofit, and loved the nonprofit world. Loved outreach. Loved ministry. Was pretty connected to that scene in Southern California, and transition into business. I know we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but that's kind of my backstory and how we ended up here.
Okay. So how would you say that you transitioned from you went to a Christian college and you worked in ministry and you did fundraising for nonprofits. How did you transition into getting into business? What did you see about the business world that caused you into being a business person? Because as you know, God has put the spirit of entrepreneurship upon mankind. It is man's choice to choose whether they enter that route.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's wild. So my father, he was in actually Christian broadcast radio for decades, and, very successful in that world in his own right. And I saw him, leading that life, being in the ministry world, in the corporate world, being successful. And so I always had a dad who set a great example. My father was probably one of my best friends in the whole world, suit and tie, and he led the charge, and he did phenomenal. And so I had that example from a business perspective, but my dad never had his own business. He was never an entrepreneur, never had his own business, but he talked about it. I can remember being a young kid, and I remember him telling me, Andrew, one of the choices, the routes I wish I would have taken was, instead of just being in radio, I wish I would have gotten my own radio station. I wish I would have gone that way in business. And there were some things that he worked on that moved that direction, but they didn't pan out. So for me, I always thought I was going to get a degree and go work at a church forever. I literally thought I was going to be working within the four walls of a church. And my hat is off to all of the pastors and ministers and people who volunteer in churches, because I know that is very difficult work. I thought that was going to be my route, from having done and trained a lot of mission teams that ended up serving in Southeast Asia and some other places. I thought maybe I'd end up in another country. Who knows? Spent some time overseas. And when I was in the church and I was working as a college pastor, I'll never forget, I had this moment where I was really praying about my transition and saying, okay, God, what's next? And was transitioning into getting married. And I remember the Lord clearly speaking to my heart, I trained you in the church, but I called you to the marketplace. And that was kind of a 180 for me. I was never the guy who said, I'm going to go be successful. I'm going to go run a business. I didn't have a lot of interaction with this concept you have of entrepreneurship and running a business. So for me, it kind of came out of nowhere. It was kind of my burning bush moment, if you will. And I was pretty hesitant. I was pretty afraid. I was pretty nervous, but I was willing to explore. And, God's always faithful. When he calls you, he sets you up. And so I had a good friend who was in business, was running his own agency inside the financial sector, doing well for himself, doing well for his family. And he's really the one who introduced me. He, helped me get my feet wet in the pool and said, have you ever thought about getting licensed, being a professional, having a business? And I hadn't, but he took me under his wing. And because of a lot of good mentors and a lot of good training, I believe that I was able to make it. So there was kind of that internal sense of calling, and I was pretty hesitant, pretty intimidated to cut my teeth on it, but had the right relationships and got into business. And since having made that transition, since having made a decision, I'm gonna walk this out, it's been so rewarding. And I know when we were speaking, it's crazy because about this whole thing about entrepreneurship, there's a book I'm reading right now by Michael Hyatt. He just came out with it, and it's called Entrepreneurs Will Save the World, Why the Best Hope for the Economy is You. And he redefines or defines entrepreneurship not as somebody who necessarily has to run their own business and start an enterprise, but as someone who solves a problem for profit. And when you and I look at so many people who are involved with alleviating suffering in the world, correcting injustice, changing the system, moving people toward a better future, so much of that is the spirit of entrepreneurship. I mean, we were talking, when you look at Isaiah 61, that passage that Jesus referenced, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. I'm here to set the captives free. I'm here to bring breakthrough. That is so integrally connected to entrepreneurship. And I was reading in the book and going through it. It's crazy because the word entrepreneur, the French word, you go back and it really is someone who's an undertaker. That's the translation, is an undertaker.
Right.
And in 1382, if you'll believe this, in 1382, the word undertaker shows up for the first time in kind of the European languages. And the word undertaker means the one who comes alongside, which in Greek is the exact same word that translates as the Holy Spirit, the Parakletos, the one who comes alongside. And it's crazy to think about the entrepreneur as the person who is an undertaker, who comes alongside, wants to solve a problem. And that's really the Holy Spirit's role with us. And so, honestly, Larry, I think of the Holy Spirit as the ultimate entrepreneur. He's going out there solving problems, coming alongside. And I think him living inside of us, bringing the life of Christ through us, I think we're called to go do that. And in this case, do it in the marketplace. So that was kind of my transition.
Wow. Yes, that's right. I mean, you just broke down kind of like the pattern of business. You have you have a chairman of the board, you have a CEO, and then you have a COO, and with the Holy Ghost being the Holy Spirit being the chief operating officer here in the earth realm. And that's a good analogy. How did you get involved with PHP? I know, because I first heard the name, people helping people, that caught my attention.
Yeah.
And how did you have to get into that?
It's wild because people say people helping people. Is that a nonprofit? Because I came from nonprofit, and I say, no, we're very much for profit, but we've got that feel. For me, when you look at People Helping People Agency, it started with Patrick Bet-David. And if people aren't familiar with Patrick Bet-David and Valuetainment and the valuable content that he's created, he got into the financial industry and started People Helping People in 2009. We were just talking about it. And the vision of the company was, we want to go save America. And it wasn't a political thing. It wasn't a Democrat or Republican thing. It was an economic thing. Regardless of someone's ethnic background, their cultural background, their religious background, if you're in socioeconomic middle America, there's one color that impacts everybody, and it's the color green. And there's a lot of ways where we don't learn how to go make money the way the wealthy do. Whether you are Latino, African American, Caucasian, Middle Eastern, Polynesian, Asian, Pacific Islander, whatever your background is, Native American, we don't learn money. We don't learn how to play and win the money game. We may play Monopoly as a kid, but nobody teaches us how to play and win the money game in life. And so Patrick Bet-David saw this. He's a Christian Assyrian, immigrated here from Iran in the 70s. The Shah got deposed. Khomeini came to power, lived in a refugee camp in Germany for 2 years, came to LA, got into insurance. People can go see his story. But when he started PHP, he saw that the way the wealthy get access to learn about business, entrepreneurship, personal finance, financial literacy, and the way we do in middle America, those are two very different paths. And so he thought, man, I want to create a company that is positively disruptive and transforms the status quo of the existing financial industry. And so you look around at America, we were talking about this, that there's not a money problem in America, there's a leadership problem. And a lot of times those two things can go hand in hand. And so the vision of People Helping People from the beginning was, we want to go save America by creating a platform that builds the next generation of leaders that will go into all of the different, 7 or 8 different mountains or segments of society. And if we could go train and mentor and raise up that next wave of leaders for business, arts, politics, science, technology, media, business, family, religion, if we could go send leaders into those spheres of society, we could save America. We could change America. And so we're an entrepreneurship leadership development company that happens to have just chosen the financial industry because it's a high-paying industry. It's a recession-proof industry. It's an incredible career for those who don't know about it. I know you've been in the insurance and the financial business. You know it can give somebody an incredible life. So for me, being totally green, to answer your question, how did I get in? Patrick Bet-David starts this company with the mission and vision of, we don't want to just go make money. We want to go make history. And I tell people all the time, if you chase money, money runs away from you. But if you go chase purpose, money starts chasing you. All the resources that you need, that you are required to have, to possess, to fulfill the call of God in your life, they'll come to you if you'll go chase your purpose. And so I was in a spot where I was kind of in between this transition of, I'm going to go do traditional ministry to, I'm going to go into the business world marketplace ministry. And I was looking for a platform. My buddy, who was the financial advisor, he was working with the firm. He had just recently left working at a bank. He was a financial advisor at a bank, and he was opening up his own brokerage. He took me under his wing, and I got connected to Patrick Bet-David through him. And when I saw the vision, when I saw his eyes, and I heard him speak about the vision of saving America and helping families who've been left out and left behind, I fell in love. Mm-hmm. It spoke to everything inside of me from my nonprofit and ministry world, and it spoke to everything on the business side that I needed to grow in. So, the company started with 60 agents. It was a tiny little David versus Goliath story, us against the industry in the beginning. And we went from 60 agents in one office and a wing and a prayer to now there's over 18,000 agents in 49 states. And we've been invited into multiple countries, and we're just getting started. But that's how I got into the financial industry. And it was kind of a combination of a variety of relationships and callings that all kind of meshed at the same
Wow. So tell us about what type of products you have, and then you just got to talk about the opportunity, but how would someone that was a novice, how would they go about getting into the business?
Yeah. So there's kind of two different elements to that. And I know when we were talking earlier, we had the conversation about leadership development and then financial literacy. And there's really two kinds of people that get attracted to this business. Obviously, in the financial industry, there's people who they want to make a lot of money. They want control. They want to control their income, control their lifestyle. They want to be able to travel, have the house, have the car, and all that stuff is good. If someone's looking for an industry that can give them a just an insane lifestyle. Insurance can do that. And people can see that across the board. But there's the tertiary or the surface reasons why people get into the business. And then there's the deeper reasons. And I find the deeper reasons why people get into an industry or a career or open a business in this industry is they want to come through for their mom and dad. They want to retire their parents. They want to take care of their spouse. They want their kids to go to a better school. They want to live in a better zip code. They want to be able to give back to their community. They want to give back to their church. They want to go write a 6-figure check for a good cause. They want to go end, sex trafficking. They want to have an impact with clean water. There's a deeper reason beyond the money, beyond the freedom, the lifestyle that somebody gets involved in. So what I would say is the very first step for someone to get into an industry like this is they've got to identify the deeper reason of why they want to be successful and what success looks like for them. And I realize that's an intangible step, but before you even go get a license and you walk down to your state department and take a state exam and get licensed in insurance, you really got to know why you're doing it. There's a book called Your Next 5 Moves, and our CEO, Patrick, he wrote it. I make no money from the sale of that book, but I read it and it really impacted me. I've been fortunate to get personally mentored by Patrick for the last 6-7 years. And in that book, he talks about the difference between an intrapreneur and an entrepreneur, someone who thinks like an innovator, thinks like a creative, thinks like a disruptor, but they work for somebody, versus somebody who thinks like an innovator, thinks like a disruptor, and they go pioneer their own business. And I think what's beautiful about the insurance industry is it allows you to straddle both those fences. You don't have to be completely on your own, isolated, start from scratch, no system, no training, no development, just you're completely out in the cold in the winter. You don't have to be there, but you also can build something that's yours. You can build a business, a book of business, a block of business that's yours. And I'm so thankful for what Patrick created in terms of the platform. So my genesis of how I got into the industry, obviously somebody's got to get licensed, whether you become a teacher, a CPA, real estate, truck driver, barber, you got to go invest a few $100, a few $1,000 to go get licensed. So there's a licensing process somebody has to go through. And the beautiful thing about insurance is it's pretty inexpensive and it's pretty fast. You can, we're in California as I'm in California. I know you're in Vegas. As I stand here today, in mid-December 2020, you can go take an insurance exam in California. If you get a D, a 60%, you pass, and you can do it without ever leaving your home remotely because of what's going on with COVID. Obviously, people will probably listen to this long after we're locked into our closets with COVID, but it's crazy how someone who has kids, needs flexibility, is taking care of a parent, something's going on in their life where they need flexibility and they need to be able to have a career where they don't have to worry about, is my boss going to call me back to work? Am I going to one day not have to work remotely? What happens if my kids still can't go to school and they're doing distance learning in the house and I got to pay a nanny to be here with them? Or, I'm worried about going back to work because what if I catch COVID and bring it back to an elderly parent that I'm taking care of? There's so many different configurations of life in America for families that having ultimate flexibility is powerful. So for someone to get into the business, step one, they've got to understand, they've got to identify the deeper reason of why they want to become successful, what success looks like. Number two, they got to get trained and licensed. And that's really where PHP comes into play. We help folks who are green, like me, no experience, be able to get into the business, onboard into the business, get licensed and trained and developed, where they don't have to do cold calling. They don't have to do door knocking. They don't have to buy leads, pay for advertising. They don't have to do a lot of the stuff traditionally that either frightens people, scares people, or keeps people from being successful long-term. We're able to eliminate a lot of that and help people start their own brokerage where they can really keep their own book of business long-term and build a family business and build generational wealth and passive income. So I would say those 3 steps are really the steps of how somebody gets into the industry. We just wanted to make a platform that hands down was the greatest platform, the greatest entry-level opportunity for someone to get into this industry from scratch, to identify why, get their licensed, and then we provide all the training, development, and platform.
That's good. So the first step would be they need to do self-examination, find out the why or why they want to do it.
Yeah.
And then seeking once they come to a certain decision about it, then actually taking steps forward to move in a direction to get trained, because there is you definitely you got to take classes on how to take the state license.
Yeah. And there's really two components because, listen, there's a lot of companies out there, whether it's real estate, whether it's life insurance, whether it's anything. If you're going to get into business, there's some element of sales, right? And that's true if you're a pastor, if you're trying to, sell Jesus. That's true if you are doing whatever it is you're doing. If you have a resume, you want to get a job, you got to sell yourself to the person who's hiring. Life is sales. You want to go marry somebody, you got to sell yourself on why you to them. Life is sales. So outside of just learning basic sales and outside of passing an exam, someone's really got to decide what is the future that they're trying to build. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of weirdly, uniquely qualified to have this conversation with somebody because I got a master's in career counseling and adult development. So when you look at the way most people pick a job, pick a profession, Larry, this is the crazy thing. If you and I go to an auto dealership and we want to buy a car, we walk onto the lot and a good salesperson is going to say, hey, what are you looking for? I'm looking for a car. No kidding. You're here at a dealership. What kind of car? And they start asking questions. Do you have kids? Is this for him? Is this for her? Is this to get the kids to school? Is this a commuter car? Do you need good mileage? Do you need what are you trying to accomplish? So when you buy a car, you start with the end in mind and work backwards. We'll talk about financial planning, good financial planning. You start with the end in mind. What age do you want to retire? How much income do you need coming in every month? Where are you going to live? What do taxes look like? What's cost of living? You start with the end in mind and you work backwards. Most of life's decisions, big decisions, they're made that way. But you want to know what's crazy? The way most people do career counseling and the way they pick an industry or the way they pick, go to schools, get a job, get all this stuff we do, we drank the Kool-Aid and we just go to school and we get into debt, $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 that statistically most people don't get out of that student loan debt until their mid 40s, early 50s. So we lock ourselves up into debt, but we never even ask the question when we step onto a college campus, hey, what are you solving for? What do you mean? What am I solving for? Yeah, when you're 45, where do you want to live? What kind of house? What kind of car? How many kids? What do you want in savings? How much money do you need to make every year in order to live that lifestyle? And then imagine if you sat down with a freshman and you said, oh my God, I guess I'm going to need to make $250,000 a year. I guess I need to make $500,000 a year. Okay, well, here, Bobby, Sally, here's all the professions you could choose here at college that will allow you to make $100,000, $250,000, $500,000. What if people actually made career decisions, not off this crazy Disney crap? Follow your dream and everything will work out. Obviously not. But what if instead of just taking some classes based off of post-adolescent interest, we actually helped people plan, where do you want to end up? And then we work backwards to say, well, you kind of got to go pick this profession. So when we help people onboard into the industry, there's one aspect that says, listen, you want to get into the industry, you want to learn sales. There are so many companies out there that, for respect to the industry, I won't mention any names, but think of any insurance brand that you know. They will teach you how to sell life insurance. They'll teach you how to sell an IRA. They'll teach you how to sell retirement accounts. But you know what most companies won't teach you how to do? Or if they do, they may not teach you that well. They'll never teach you how to be the entrepreneur or the broker running the operation, unless you pay them $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of franchise fees or some other hoopla, you know what. And so when Patrick built the platform, he said, I want to create a platform where people can get into the industry, but day one, put them in the driver's seat to be the entrepreneur, put them in the driver's seat to go be the broker, put them in the driver's seat to go build, the future that they want with the end in mind. And so when we talk about you got to get trained, sure, you got to get trained on the license. You got to get trained on how to sell. But I'll tell you, Larry, what I find most people need to get trained on is they need to get trained on leadership, management, recruiting, people skills, conflict resolution. How do you deal with couples? How do you deal with singles? How do you help people develop skill sets? How do you deal with different personalities? How do you mentor people and help people become successful? Because if I'm a salesperson, all I got to do is learn how to convince you to buy my product. No problem. Anybody can do that. But if you want to become wealthy, you've got to help other people make money. Meaning, John Maxwell, he says it this way, when you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. So as a broker, as an entrepreneur, if I can help people go make six figures, go make $250,000, go make $500,000, now I've not just made money for me and I'm walking away. Well, look at my life. Look at my house. Look at my car. I'm good. I made it. It's not about me making it. If I'm a real leader, my life is supposed to be poured out in the service of others. So how have I improved the quality of their life? How many people have I helped leave their jobs to become entrepreneurs? How many people have I helped make $10, $20, $30,000 in a month of income? And so for us, we don't just teach sales, although we do that and we do that pretty well. We teach people leadership, relationships, business, entrepreneurship, conflict management, the kind of stuff that's actually going to allow them to be successful to help other people, if that makes sense.
So when you're talking about that's kingdom empowerment
Totally.
through leadership principles and
Totally.
teaching them, because a lot of people, they don't know about entrepreneurship, but that's what you're doing.
And I'll even say this. I think there's a difference between just entrepreneurship, and you talked about kingdom empowerment. I use the phrase kingdom entrepreneurship. And to me, when I look at business and I look at entrepreneurship and I look at the call of advancing the kingdom, there's this model that you can extract from scripture. Listen, I'm sure we got people on here who are more theologically diagnosed. They got the degrees and the letters, and I respect all of it more than I do. But there's a model you can extract from scripture, but I'm not trying to quote scripture when I say this. It's just a model. And you know that verse where it talks about there's the spirit of adoption that causes us to become, sons and daughters. We're co-heirs with Christ. We step from a place of not being in the family to being in the family. We're grafted into a whole new family. This adoption concept. There's a couple interesting concepts when it comes to entrepreneurship, specifically kingdom empowerment, kingdom entrepreneurship, which is specifically what I work hard to be able to teach and impart to people through the training program at People Helping People. And it's this idea of there's this word in Greek, huios, and the word huios is translated sons. But the word son, and I'm going to use, gender neutral son, daughter. When someone is a huios, when they're a son or a daughter, the word huios means fully mature one. In America, we'd say, you hit 18 years old, you can drive. 21 years old, you can drink. And, maybe when you hit 25, we know something, right? Who knows? But let's just talk about being at a state of full maturity. If somebody, let's just say you're 12 years old, God forbid your parents die, and they've got money, they've got assets, they've got an estate for you. If you're 12 years old and both your parents die, you don't get all of your estate. You don't get your inheritance yet. You have to come of age legally, right? And there's a maturing process where you have to come of age to be able to receive your inheritance. Well, what's true in the natural is true in the spirit. And one of my mentors, Graham Cook, he talks about this all the time. He talks about God's role in our life, God's vision for our life is to pull us into a place of maturity where instead of us just running around doing our own thing, we're able to grow into a space of maturity where we can be entrusted with the resources to fulfill the dream that's in our heart. I think a lot of people have a dream in their heart. We have dreams, visions, plans, goals, things we want to accomplish. We've tasted it. We've nibbled at it. We've had the appetizers in front of us our whole life. And we have like this beautiful fantasy that we hold in our heart of what we feel called to. But there's a gap between what we feel called to and what we want to go build, and then what most people actually never accomplish with their life. I believe it was Martin Luther King Jr. said something to the effect of, most people get buried after 65, but they die at 21 because the dream of what their life's supposed to be about dies in their heart and they never fulfill it. And so you look at the gap between what's God's put in us and then what actually gets extracted out of us. I believe it's in 2 Corinthians. He says, we were prepared for good works. God literally pulled out this blueprint in heaven and he designed us uniquely to accomplish exploits, to accomplish incredible things in the earth. And he designed those things before he said, let there be light. So he's been sitting on a blueprint of achievement and success that would allow your success to liberate other people towards their inheritance. He literally designed this thing before he said, let there be light. Okay, so what is kingdom entrepreneurship? We've got to go through a process. We as human beings have got to go through a developmental process that takes us from being immature kids to being fully mature sons and daughters so we can be entrusted with our inheritance. We got to go from 12 to 18 in the spirit realm. And until we go from 12 to 18 years old or 21 years old in the spirit realm, that inheritance isn't going to get fully released to us. The provision and the resources for us to go build it, because you can't give a 10-year-old a Ferrari or a handgun. They're not going to do anything responsible with it for the most part. You got to become mature. And so kingdom entrepreneurship to me is this idea of the opposite of a son or daughter, someone who loses their parents, is called an orphan. So if you went with this mentality, again, this concept of if someone's in an orphaned state, emotionally, spiritually, I believe that the orphaned spirit or the orphaned state is somebody whose mind and their mentality and their decision-making is governed by three things: fear, shame, and lack.
Mhm.
And when someone can mature out of fear, shame, and lack, and they can step into a place of love, worth, goodness, and abundance, they're stepping into a space of maturity. Now they become a son or a daughter. They step out of the orphan spirit. They get into the spirit of adoption. They become a son or a daughter, and now they can be entrusted with their inheritance. But the inheritance is never meant to be just spent on our own lifestyle. You can have a great car, great house, private jet, helicopter. You go ask God what to do with your wealth, he'll tell you, and different strokes for different folks. So I don't judge nobody and what they do with their money, because they're not called to do what I'm called to do with my money. So you can't judge somebody else because you don't know what God told them or told them not to do. You can't do that. And we get roped into that. But the third phase of this thing of kingdom entrepreneurship is moving from orphan to son or daughter, moving from fear, shame, and lack into love, worth, goodness, and abundance, so that we can receive our inheritance. Why? So we can go from being a son or daughter to become a father and a mother. And in this model, going from orphan to son to father, now we're creating an environment, we're creating a covering where other people can be liberated from fear, shame, and lack as an orphan. They can become sons and daughters so they can receive their inheritance. We become fathers and mothers to cover other people to step into their truest identity so they can fulfill the purpose of God in their life. To me, kingdom entrepreneurship allows people to get resources, but also unlock an identity so they can steward those resources to liberate others.
Amen. That's good. That's good. That's really good. Wow. So what would you say? You're teaching that, and those are great concepts, and people adopting and adapting those into their own mentality and mindset. That's actually excellent. What would you say will be their first step? They would contact you.
Sure. So, and when you say teaching, I would say for us, in entrepreneurship, teaching in Western education is about grabbing a book and reading it. But there is and I'm not saying you think this, I know you don't. I know you are antithetical to that concept. I know you and I believe that you learn by doing. You don't read a book on how to become a parent and then have kids. You have kids and you learn how to be a parent. You don't watch videos on riding a bike and then learn to ride. No, you get on the bike and you learn how. You don't learn to swim and then get in the water. You get in the water and you learn how to swim. So what I love about kingdom entrepreneurship and what we do at People Helping People is we onboard someone into a real career, a real profession, a real industry where they can have a real career in the natural and go make real significant income. But the journey and development we take them through of skill sets forces all of us to run together in what I call a gymnasium of our faith. We go to the gym for our body, but where do we take our spirit man to the gym? We usually never do. We have to walk out with fear and trembling the calling of our faith. Galatians 6:9 says, do not grow weary in doing good. Good is the Greek word kalon, which has this idea of fulfilling your purpose and fulfilling goodness. Do not become weary in going and fulfilling your life's purpose, because in due season, you will reap an abundant harvest if you do not give up. But most of us, we read the Bible, maybe we go to church, maybe we don't, maybe we have no faith background at all, but there's not really a business environment that forces us to actually address fear, shame, and lack in a tangible way where we have to grow past those things. And what I love about our training program is by teaching, we're actually doing business. We're not teaching classes on spiritual concepts. We're not sitting around pontificating and talking about theology and philosophy. We're going and getting on the phone, man. We're going and getting and talking to clients. We're getting rejected. We're doing business. We're having conflict. We're having conversations. We're doing business. We're doing life together. And Sunday to Sunday, I'm in the trenches with our gals and our guys, and we're going after what's the next best version of us? Who can we become if we really sold out to, I want to become all that God created me to be, and get into a gymnasium of faith that would extract the greatness God put in us. So yeah, if somebody is hearing this and saying, man, I want to be a part of a community like that. I want to find a career where I can go do that. I want to find a career, a platform, a business where I can scale my impact, scale my income, and get more control over my finances and my future, they would reach out to me. We would sit down, and we don't accept everybody into the training program. We're a company, we're a business. So we have an interview process, and somebody's got to be willing to get a license, but we walk them through how to do that. And we provide all the training and support. So, someone would reach out to me, whether it's, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, Andrew D. Gaines. Andrew D is in David Gaines, Andrew D. Gaines. I make the joke, it's about the gains, not the losses, but kind of works for the financial industry. And, if someone reaches out, I tell somebody, if you reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook, and, if they just reference the radio station, they just say, hey, I heard you on KBRG and I heard the session, I'll know that we connected here, and maybe we could allow your listeners to have an inside scoop and get ahead of the curve or ahead of the line in terms of interviews we set up. I'd be willing to facilitate that process of getting them to the front of the line. But, if someone reaches out, just go to Instagram and say, Andrew D. Gaines, hey, I heard you on the radio station with Larry. And I want to go after success. I want to go after kingdom success. I want to go after kingdom in entrepreneurship. And we'd sit down, we'd talk about them getting enrolled into the training program, knocking out their licensing, and we'd start training them. Those would be next steps, tangible next steps anyway.
So let me ask you, okay, so since you mentioned that as a tangible next step, what would you kind of highlight the process?
Yeah.
Once they go to the interview, they succeed, made a success through the interview. What are the steps of the process they will go to lead to licensing?
Yeah, and I'll try to keep it generic and use generic costs, because it's different state to state. We're in 49 states in Puerto Rico and looking to expand in other countries. And so depending on the time at which someone listens to this, it may have changed. That's my compliance disclaimer, right? So someone's going to invest about 1 or 2 weeks and about $400 to $500 in a licensing process. In real estate, most of my buddies have spent 3 to 9 months and $1 to $2 grand on licensing. I have a buddy who's a barber. He's dropped about $5,000 in a year of his life to go become a barber. If someone wants to become a truck driver, there's that process. You want to go to become a teacher, it's 2 years, 20 grand for that process. So our process is pretty short, 1 to 2 weeks to get licensed, and it's pretty inexpensive. It's $400 to $500. Now, I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a registered. I'm giving all my disclaimers for the radio, right? But when you start a business, you can go look up pretty easy. There's these things called business expenses. And so there are ways, if you talk to your accountant, for you to be able to play the chess game like the wealthy do, with how to be able to recapture money that has gone out and be able to recapture that. And so the licensing process, it can be a business expense, right? So somebody goes and gets licensed. They invest $400 or $500 over 1 to 2 weeks to go get a license. As they're going through that licensing process, part of that is studying online on their cell phone, tablet, computer for the test. And I've literally had guys come into our training program, study for 28 hours, and go take their test with the state the second day that they're in our training program and pass. So if somebody's on top of their game and they want to get licensed in a day or two, they can go knock out their test within 1 or 2 days of being with us. Most people take 5 to 10 days, but most of our agents, it's pretty fast. We have a pretty good training program where we get people expedited into licensing pretty quickly. And so, they'll invest a couple $100, less than they spent on their iPhone, their television, and their computer, and all the rest of the stuff that we spend our money on. They go invest into themselves. They get a license. We train them 1 to 2 weeks. They go pass their test. Meanwhile, we're teaching them, retirement accounts, life insurance, financial planning concepts. We're teaching them the business. We're teaching them leadership, management, recruiting, onboarding, how to scale, systems, everything you'd need to run a business and scale a business. We're teaching them those things in our training program. And in terms of income, I'll give you some kind of disclosures here. Or I'll just kind of be transparent with you, I should say. When I got started in the business, I was part-time. I know we talked about this, Larry. I was working at a nonprofit, maybe 40, 50 hours a week. I was working full-time. And, I was in Southern California. I was making, I'll just kind of give a range. I was making between $40,000 to $60,000 a year. Nothing crazy, nothing to brag about, nothing that's going to set anybody free or allow them to do anything crazy in California. And I needed to make more money. And I needed to have an income that would allow me to help with a lot of stuff going on in my life as My mom and dad lived through, 2008, 2009 and lost a lot during that recession. I think a lot of your listeners can probably relate. Losing money in 401ks, losing equity, losing all kinds of stuff. And my dad was around 70 when that all happened. So there wasn't a whole lot of runway left for him to go make it back. So I felt that I was going to really have to take on the reins and become responsible for doing something special with the last name Gaines and being able to carry on my dad's legacy of what he pioneered for our family and take that to the next level. So when I got into the industry, I was part-time. I was doing insurance and retirement planning, maybe 20 hours a week. I was doing on the side. I was part-time. And while I was part-time, I made $52,000 in a year. That's what my full-time job was paying me. Part-time. Part-time.
Wow.
You go do your 9 to 5, and then you got nights and weekends, and you want to go find a real industry that will allow you to move towards your dream without compromising your ability to pay your bills, right? And this industry does that. I remember when I went full-time and I left the nonprofit world. My wife left her job. She was working at a university. She left her job. We went full-time running an insurance business. We were late 20s. We hadn't been doing this for 30 years. We hadn't even been doing this for 10 years. I think maybe we'd been doing this, I don't know, 3-4 years, maybe part-time. And I remember we went full-time. I made $100,000 the first 6 months being full-time in this business. I'm 28, 29, Larry. I had never made $100,000 in 12 months. I'm sure many of your listeners, they have businesses. Maybe they make $350, maybe they make $720. Maybe you got people who make over $1 million a year in their business. That's awesome. I'm a late 20s nobody. I was never valedictorian. I was never team captain. I couldn't pass a spelling bee in junior high. Real talk. So I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but here I am going from part-time to full-time, late 20s, making 6 figures in 6 months. That's not a credit to me. That's a credit to people helping people's training program and the platform they built for a young guy like me to be able to go do something. And, now we're in a spot where, it's 2020 and I'll keep numbers very general, but we're making over $300,000 a year. We've got a pretty substantial net worth. We've got some equity ownership in the agency that the entire company. Now we're one of the co-owners of the firm and we've earned equity, and there are some details to that, which are pretty exciting. But to be 34 years old, be making multiple 6 figures, having friends of yours who've been in the industry and they're at 7-figure a year incomes, and you're able to build that in a industry helping people, empowering people who've been left out and left behind, and doing it in a way where you're helping other people develop and achieve their life's purpose. The money is great, but who you become, that's what's so fulfilling. So, and it's to kind of bring it full circle. This is why somebody starts. This is why they say, man, I paid $50,000 for a degree and I can pay $500 and become all that I can be. Shoot, I think I want to get into this industry, right? So it starts with why. Who do you want to become? Start with the end in mind. Who do you want to become, and why would you want to get into a business like this? You got to know why. And once you know why, if you're willing to invest a couple $100 into yourself rather than a few $1,000s into a piece of paper, this one license with your state, with the right people, the right mentors, the right program, it can change somebody's life. So, yeah, man, that's kind of the process. Well, that's the journey.
Tell us again how listeners can reach you, given like your website, your phone numbers, and all your email, all that information, so when people don't know how to get in contact with you.
Yeah, I would say the best way is social media, because that's not going to change, right? If who knows what happens with cell phones and technology and WhatsApp and all this kind of stuff, and someone crazy might get a hold of something and try to text me late at night. So I'm going to give you my Instagram. I'm going to give you my Facebook, my LinkedIn. I'm Andrew D. Gaines. I'm Andrew D. Gaines, Andrew David Gaines, Andrew D. Gaines on all of those platforms. And if somebody goes to Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and they find Andrew D. Gaines, and they say, hey, I heard you on KBRG radio. I heard you with Larry Harris. Success to succeed. I heard what you talked about. I want to have a deeper conversation. I'll get on the phone with them. You can go to our corporate website, phpagents.com. phpagency.com talks about the products and services that we represent with the insurance companies. phpagents.com talks about that. But the most valuable asset we have online is valuetainment, not entertainment, valuetainment. It's our YouTube channel. We got, at this point, over 2.6 million subscribers. We run the #1 channel on YouTube teaching entrepreneurship. But listeners can reach out to me directly. Andrew D. Gaines on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. I'm most active on Instagram. And we can set up a time. We can get on a call. My email is Andrew D. Gaines at Gmail. So again, like I said, Larry, I'm Andrew D. Gaines everywhere I go. Andrew D. Gaines at Gmail, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Reach out. Let's have a conversation. And if any of your listeners said, you know what, I would love to get connected to a program like that. I'm just thinking of this right now, Larry. What I would do is I would be willing to set up a special program where we help cover maybe part of their licensing process. I could get with some of the people we run accounting with and things like that. And for our organization, if you reach out to me, Andrew D. Gaines, we'd be willing to put together some kind of special package to help them cover part of the cost of licensing or pre-licensing or things like that. We could do that. It's December 17th, 2020. So if somebody reaches out here, let's just say the next 30 days, you got between now and January 17th, I'll put something together special in our training program to be able to help them with a part of that, Larry. I'll put that together.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. God bless you. Definitely want to encourage people to get in contact with you. You've opened people's eyes, and we all can see clearly now, and we can see all the obstacles that would be in the way, so that we can move forward and walk in the kingdom leadership and actually become an entrepreneur. And I want to thank you again. I thank you, Andrew. I bless you.
I receive it.
We're going to have you on again, and hopefully, this is going to lead to even more programs that people can talk about getting into the financial services industry, and they can learn to help one another, like the agency belongs to, people helping people, and they can do that. So with that being said, you've been listening to KBRG. Our guest today has been Andrew D. Gaines. He's definitely made a gain forward in helping you to get into entrepreneurship. So thank you, Andrew. God bless.
Thank you.
Here is the rainbow I've been praying